In June 1922, Herrin, Illinois, became a place where a coal strike crossed into deadly violence. At the Southern Illinois Coal Company mine, striking miners, strikebreakers, mine guards, and local authorities faced one another in a town already shaped by hard work and fear. At least 20 people died. The records show the deaths. They also raise a harder question. Why did so many institutions fail before the shooting stopped? Herrin was not just a dot on a map. It stood in southern Illinois, where coal paid wages, filled stores, and gave local leaders their power. A mine could support a family, yet the same mine could bring danger, debt, and sudden loss of work. When the strike came, every choice carried a cost. Working could mark a person as a traitor. Refusing could mean hunger. The United Mine Workers stood at the center of the labor fight. Its members sought control over wages and working rules, while coal companies faced falling demand and fierce pressure to cut costs. A strike was not only a pause in work, it was a test of who had the right to decide how the mine would run and who would bear the risk below ground. The Southern Illinois Coal Company tried to keep its mine operating with strikebreakers. Mine guards were brought in to protect the site and the workers inside it. Their presence changed the shape of the dispute. A labor fight now included armed men near a closed mine, while striking workers saw the guards as a private force placed above local workers. The first violence at the mine set the chain in motion. The available account describes a confrontation involving striking miners, strikebreakers, and guards. Afterward, armed men captured workers and marched them through the countryside. The exact acts of each person were argued later, but the basic result is clear. The conflict moved beyond the mine and into the wider life of Herrin. That movement mattered. A mine could be watched, guarded, and shut down. Roads and fields were harder to control. Once captured workers were taken away from the site, the lines between labor action, local punishment, and organized violence grew unclear. The town's old ideas of loyalty now shaped who felt protected, who felt hunted, and who believed the law would stand aside. Local authorities had a duty to restrain armed groups and protect people in their care, yet the records and later debate point to weak law enforcement during the crisis. That does not prove that every official shared the same goal, and it does not assign equal blame to every person involved. It does show a public system unable or unwilling to stop private power from directing events. The mine guards also reveal a key divide. Employers often described guards as protection for property and workers. Striking miners saw them as a threat to union control. Both sides used the language of justice. One side spoke of order at the mine. The other spoke of defense against outside force. When each group claimed law on its own terms, violence found room to grow. The United Mine Workers brought strength, but union strength did not mean control over every act carried out in a strike town. A broad labor cause could contain many local choices, angry crowds, and private loyalties. That distinction is important. The massacre cannot be explained by blaming the union as one simple body, just as it cannot be explained by blaming the company alone. Herrin's local world made the dispute more intense. Coal towns depended on close ties among workers, families, merchants, and officials. Those ties could help people survive a hard industry. They could also make neutral judgment difficult. A person deciding what to report, whom to trust, or whether to intervene might know the people on both sides. Law did not arrive in an empty place. It entered a town full of loyalties. The evidence trail comes from court files, newspaper reports, union records, and Illinois mine safety records. Each source shows a different part of the case. Court files show how responsibility was tested in law. Newspapers recorded claims made during a fast-moving crisis. Union records reveal the labor setting. Mine safety records place the violence inside a dangerous industry, not outside it. No single record settles every question. Accounts of the event and individual responsibility were argued in court and remain debated by historians. Some details are firm, including the date, the mine, the armed conflict, and the deaths. Other details require care. A record may show that violence occurred without proving what every witness saw or what every accused person intended. The trials brought a promise of judgment, but the results produced little accountability. That outcome did not erase the dead. it did show the limits of a court system working inside a town where local power, labor loyalty, and fear pressed against the search for clear responsibility. The courtroom could name a crisis, yet naming it was not the same as repairing the damage. For families, the argument over blame could not restore trust. Workers had seen a strike become a fight over who counted as part of the community. Employers had seen their mine become a center of danger. Officials had faced a test of public power and failed to give the town a clear sense of safety. The lasting wound was not only death, it was the loss of faith in shared rules. The countryside around Herrin also mattered. The mine was tied to roads, homes, fields, and nearby towns. Coal power did not stay underground. It shaped land, jobs, politics, and social rank above ground. When the conflict spread from the mine into that landscape, it exposed how deeply the industry had entered daily life. A fight over work became a fight over the town itself. Illinois carried many coal regions, but Herrin showed a sharp local truth. Industrial power could be strong enough to shape public life while remaining too divided to protect it. A company had money and guards. Miners had numbers and union ties. Officials had legal authority. None of those powers worked as a trusted whole when the crisis came. The massacre also arrived during a wider change in coal. The industry faced pressure, and union power would later weaken. But the event was not simply a story of a union rising or falling. It was a warning about what happens when dangerous work, economic fear, private force, and weak public control meet in one place. That is why the Herrin massacre exposed Illinois coal power. It showed that power was not held by one villain or one institution. It was spread among the company, mine guards, striking workers, the United Mine Workers, local officials, and a community tied to coal for survival. Each force could act. None could be trusted to stop the next force. The record, therefore, resists an easy verdict. The deaths were real, and the failure of accountability was real. The motives, actions, and legal responsibility of individuals were more complex, and some claims remain disputed. A balanced account does not soften the violence. It explains how a town reached a point where competing ideas of justice replaced a common rule. Herrin remains a case file from Illinois because the central question still reaches beyond 1922. What happens when workers fear losing their only livelihood, owners rely on armed protection, and officials cannot command public trust? In Herrin, the answer was measured in lives, broken faith, and trials that settled less than the town needed. The coal was buried underground. The power struggle was not.